I think we're getting overwhelmed with all the things that is happening today. Like I was actually on a call yesterday with a colleague of mine, and she's like, I feel like I'm falling behind because there is so much changing right now. And I even said, like, I feel guilty of that too, that I feel as though I'm not keeping up with the innovation on what's happening with AI and how quickly it's moving.
Hey, I'm Guy Powell, and welcome to the next episode of the Backstory on Marketing in AI. And if you haven't already done so, definitely visit prorelevant.com and sign up for more of these episodes and podcasts. As you know, I am the author of the upcoming book, The AI Marketing Machine, and we're about to launch some really, really cool stuff coming up here in the next few weeks. And so stay tuned and definitely visit and sign up for the newsletter when we get ready to launch the book. Today I've got Javier Lozano, and he is the founder of Boulder Media Company. And so let me tell you a little bit about him. He's got a great background. He's a fractional CMO helping B2B technology and service companies build disciplined, predictable growth engines. And formerly, he was the CMO of RapMate, where he scaled revenue from 1 million to 20 million in under 4 years. Wow, what a background. And today, of course, he partners with CEOs to really install repeatable go to market and revenue systems. Javier, what a great background. Welcome, and so good to have you.
Before we go any further, a quick pause. This is important. Your sales force is one of the most expensive investments in your company. The real question isn't who's likely to buy someday, it's who should be called right now to create the most value. Traditional propensity models tell you who might convert. Our prescriptive modeling, called COPA, tells you who will convert because you called them. If you manage a large sales organization and want higher conversion, bigger deals, and better use of every rep hour, let's talk. If you want your sales team focused on the calls that matter most, visit prescriptivemodeling.prorelevant.com and set up a short strategy session.
Thanks for the opportunity, Guy. I really appreciate having me on the show. Looking forward to kind of just talking shop and nerding out here.
Yeah, absolutely. And well, definitely. But before we do that, tell us a little bit about what your backstory is on AI and marketing.
It's what's interesting is that it changes so much, and I would probably say how I kind of got more deep into the AI world was actually where at my last in-house role at Ratmate, where we were kind of building things that were a little different. We were doing a lot of workflows. However, what I was doing is I was working hand in hand with our CTO, and basically saying, hey, I've built this much. Now I need you to kind of like put these things together for me. Can you do that? And so we would use different tools like, Pipe Dream or Zapier, like what we've all been accustomed to for the past several years. And so as we kind of started building these tools, this started giving us like an engine where it was creating a little bit more success. Like our team was able to move quickly. Our team was able to really experience automation in ways that was not being used at the time. And it feels weird saying this. It's not that we were being extremely innovative, but it was how we were using the technology. And so it wasn't all AI driven. There was some logic behind some of the workflows that we had in there, but that was kind of the beginning of it. And then as OpenAI became, what it is today for, ChatGPT and all the other tools, we started kind of using it as a superpower. So it became the tool that I use next to me as a way for ideation, a way for making sure that I'm on the right track. And the other part is also seeing things from a different lens, because I can come into a strategy thinking about, well, this is probably the best way of going about it, but then it could present some other perspectives. And so I would say that's kind of how I got indoctrinated into my backstory into AI, if you will, was really building something to a point where I needed an engineer to kind of get it over the goal line. And now we're kind of past that, where we don't really need that engineer. Sometimes you do, but there's a lot of times where you don't really need it. So that's kind of how it all got started.
Yeah, fantastic. That makes a lot of sense. And so what is Boulder Media Company? What kind of problems and opportunities do you, well, problem solve and opportunities you uncover for your clients?
So we like to focus on helping the B2B companies that are more on the startup to scale up phase. So they're probably about a million to 10, maybe 15 million. And they're very founder led. So they don't really have a lot of alignment when it comes to like a sales and marketing motion. So the sales is kind of coming from the founder, which is great. They're leaning into that person because they have a lot to offer. And what they're trying to do is create more predictability in their growth. Maybe they're trying to raise a Series A or a pre-seed round. But with that, what they're looking for is more scalability and predictability. And it's really hard to do that when you're very founder led. Like you can lean into those aspects, which are they're great, in my opinion, like moats at the beginning that kind of sets you apart from everyone else. But that's kind of hard to make it predictable. And so where I come in is I work with those teams and those companies that are looking to start streamlining, where sales and marketing are aligned, where marketing is essentially owning or having some sort of influence to revenue, where we're kind of creating these pipelines where we can all start trusting we have the right kind of messaging. And so all of those pieces of the puzzle are kind of important things that a lot of founders don't take the time to really dive into because they're focused on just getting the sale, trying to just get the company off the ground. And there's nothing wrong with that. I 100% respect the hustle. That's just a piece where, I come in at.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, one of the things too, and when you're targeting clients like you are, sound like they're smaller businesses and trying to be on that enormous growth path, and is one of the challenges they have is that they have a lot of fragmented marketing efforts. They're doing something over here and then something over there, and then they get distracted. The founder gets distracted and can't focus on it, and then months go by, and then okay, we got to start doing some marketing again. How do you build in, or how do you help those companies using AI or not, and certainly your smarts, to really build a disciplined, predictable growth system?
So it's really it's taken a step back. It's funny you say this. I have a personal enemy for our company that random acts of marketing is our enemy. That's what we're battling. And so
Yeah.
I really believe a strong marketing leader should always have an enemy that you're fighting against, because then people will start, they'll get behind you on that kind of stuff. So I am against random acts of marketing, and that's kind of what I push towards my initiative. So to answer your question though, is it's really taking a step back in understanding holistically what the company is trying to do, and then finding where they are getting a lot of leverage, where they have a wedge. They kind of have maybe a go to market, or like, hey, when we do this, we get a lot of results. Okay, let's unpack this a little bit. Let's start kind of digging deep into this and understand, why is it working? Is it because you're targeting the right audience? Is it because the messaging just resonates? Is it because the salesperson that keeps taking these calls is just crushing it because they just know what to say? Like, we need to find something that is repeatable, where we're like, every time this happens, we just close, we just win. And when you figure that piece out, then you put your attention into building that. It's not about doing a little bit of SEO and doing a little bit of paid media and doing some thought leadership, and because all of those can work. Every single one could be very, very successful if it's like hyper targeted and hyper focused. And so my approach is finding where we can get our small victories and compound that, because that allows us to then start creating predictability. That starts allowing us to have the sales team start trusting marketing, which is huge. If sales does not trust marketing, then sales is going to do their own random acts of selling, you know? And so what we're trying to do is just create this trust bridge between all departments. And that's kind of how I approach that predictability piece.
That's so funny. I really like that term. Yeah, one of the terms that I started using a way back was ROMI, which is return on marketing investment. And now you have, I don't know, it's kind of like a different Rome, this random acts of marketing and
Yep.
random acts of selling. I can't believe it. Those are perfect. That makes so much sense. And as a small business, I mean, even myself, sometimes you just get guilty and you try different things and it is very hard. That has that kind of that comprehensive view to say, hold on a second, let's make sure we're doing this right, and focusing in on the things that win, and staying away from the things that we thought were winning but really aren't winning. And
Yeah. And in the challenge there is like you said it great, is that we're all guilty of it. We're humans. We're like, oh, shiny object. And especially as like entrepreneurs, like I feel as though most of us entrepreneurs are probably in the ADD kind of category or ADHD kind of category where we're like trying different stuff. And it's not that you can't focus, it's just that you just get attracted to certain things. But as a person that's looking outside in, you have a better vision of what's going on because you're not really getting attracted by the shiny objects. You're seeing like, oh wow, if we leverage this, we can totally take this to the moon. And so I did something like that at Ratmate where we, on average, our sales team, when I came in, they were probably closing like 20 or 30 deals a month per sales rep. Well, once we kind of created the right kind of systems that allowed us to not get just the right type of quality leads, but then also the touch points that were necessary and all these other back end pieces that all get overlooked, we had reps that were averaging 60 to 70 deals a month. And then our highest reps were closing over 100. So like this doesn't like happen by accident. What happens is that you're just looking and analyzing, and then you're asking questions. You're always pushing back and asking questions. And then you kind of start leaning in data. And that's where I think some sales and marketing teams get misaligned, is that you go by feelings when really at the end of the day, it's all about the data.
Yeah. Well, and I think that's where, AI can certainly, when you're trying to use it both on the analytics side and on the LLM side, that's where AI can really expose a lot of those broken marketing systems, and they don't really fix them. Talk a little bit about that.
So, this is where I love where, and I don't mean this in an antagonizing way, but where founders say, like, oh, we just need AI to just do it and they'll fix it for us. It's not just a button. We're not in the world of the Jetsons quite yet. We're not in Star Wars where, these robots are kind of doing their thing and they can think for us and just do them. You have to really build the frameworks and the foundation of everything first. And you have to go through and do all the clicking and do all the button pushing and do all those pieces, because what's going to happen is that even if you're leveraging just agents and other flows that you could create much easier than you were before, if your process is broken, it's just going to expose everything that's happening within your process. And so it's better to actually take a step back, write it out or draw it out of how these steps go through. You go through and do it yourself, document it as you're doing it, do it a few more times, and then you're going to take that information and maybe you feed it into an LLM. Maybe you start kind of brainstorming on how you can make this kind of like automated. And so that's the better process versus like it just fix it. It's no different from like how we used Google. Like you can go down a rabbit hole in Google before then, and you just had to write the right kind of questions to find the answers you needed. And you just had to rephrase the question 8 different ways, 10 different ways, 12 different ways until you got the answer that you're looking for. And it's the same thing with working with LLMs.
Quick pause. This is important for any marketing leader. Marketing must continuously prove its value or the budgets dry up. Marketing mix models provide that proof in a way finance and leadership can believe. And we at ProRelevant help teams answer critical questions. Which campaigns actually worked? Which channels really moved the needle? And where should the next dollar go? With over 20 years of experience across complex marketing environments, we know how to deliver clarity, not guesswork. To learn more, go to mmm.prorelevant.com and set up a short strategy session. And now, back to the podcast.
Yeah, and you're so right. The prompting for LLMs, if you kind of have a good iteration process, because you get a good answer, and that's I think one of the challenges that I've found with ChatGPT or any of the other ones is that it gives you an answer that is so well written and it just looks good. So the packaging is there, but then when you dig into it and you go, well, that isn't right, or this isn't right, or something like that, then that's where the further prompting and providing it more information so that it has something to build on, that's where it really makes sense. And so where do you see companies struggling today when they're trying to add AI into their infrastructure? I don't know if I'd necessarily see AI being added to the marketing stack, so to speak, but maybe tell me how you kind of see all of that.
You know, I wonder if where I see some of the challenges is that I think we're getting overwhelmed with all the things that is happening today. Like I was actually on a call yesterday with a colleague of mine, and she's like, I feel like I'm falling behind because there is so much changing right now. And I even said, like, I feel guilty of that too, that I feel as though I'm not keeping up with the innovation on what's happening with AI and how quickly it's moving. But in reality, like, you got to look at it as like that bell curve where we're kind of like, where not everyone is actually using it to the extent of like how we're seeing it. We're just kind of seeing it out there. And I think a lot of us start thinking about, well, we just need to use to do this and just do this and just do this. When in reality, like, what you probably need to do is you need to find the easier ways of how to use it so that it can just kind of take over one piece of your problem, not the whole piece. Like, one little piece. Like, if you are sending the same email response to, an inbound email every single time, okay, that's a great use case. Use it there, as opposed to like, well, I need to build an agent that does this and it does this and it does this. So they almost try to boil the ocean versus just warm a cup of coffee. And so I think it really just starts on just starting off with one little build. Hey, we're going to build this, and we're going to see how it does. And then we're going to then see where that goes. And then we're going to build another piece of this. That's where I think all of us get, a little caught up. And I'm guilty because, like, I have to be on the forefront on a lot of this stuff. And even then I'm looking at this, I'm like, man, I am way behind where other people are building their own agents within their own phones, and they have them in their computers. And I'm like, this is wild. But it's just really taking a step back and just saying, okay, one use case, one success, start from there and build from there.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I like your yeah, I like your metaphor there. Just do a cup of coffee, not the whole ocean.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's funny because you do try and do too much, and I will admit, if you're a founder, and I've talked to a lot of founders and have worked for a lot of founders as well, and they kind of see the world in front of them as their, hey, we can do everything for the whole world, and yet it's that focus, it's the cup of coffee, finding that best cup of coffee that you can get, that you can find outside of the whole ocean there. So what does an AI ready go-to-market system actually look like?
Oh gosh. I mean, I would look at it this way. Probably one of two things is you're going to want something that is going to be, your inbound engine that, from a lead generation or demand gen kind of generation is getting stuff coming in. So that's going to be where if you're able to leverage agents to help you, say, create some blog content. Maybe it doesn't write everything, but it outlines and drafts, and it helps you kind of build those things. Maybe it's just like where you just get an agent that just give you some ideas and you write it. But where I'm getting to is that you want to have some sort of demand gen kind of demand engine that kind of brings a little traffic your way. So that's just one example, is how I would look at it. Another one would then just be is, helping you with creating that thought leadership approach. Because a lot of times I feel like founders and CEOs just don't know what to talk about. And so what you probably want to do is just find a way to say, okay, I'm going to just talk into this, ChatGPT, and just spill my brains out for 10 minutes about something that I'm working on. And that's going to probably start getting some ideas out, and where you can be like, oh, that's a great social media post I can probably write about. And you can do 2 or 3 of those posts. You don't have to take word for word what it says, but it's going to help kind of organize your thoughts. So we've got, this little, demand engine kind of over here that's more of like, more broad. You got more of a focus where it's more thought leadership. And then from there, I would start saying that you want to start building the back end. The back end is, I think, where the money is being made. It's not the top end. Everyone thinks that, it's what brings in at the very beginning, closing those leads at the very beginning that all want to buy today. Those are just the small percentages, the ones that are like, that are interested, that are kind of like, snooping around you, seeing what you're saying or doing. They might opt into something. It's how you communicate with those contacts in the back end. So it's not just like a drip email system. It's different ways in how you talk to them. Maybe you introduce them to one of your podcasts. Maybe you introduce them to one of your newsletters that are, very private or different, that kind of, explains a certain strategy. But ways on how you do that. And you can definitely leverage a lot of AI on the back end of that piece, because that's where, in my opinion, is like, that's how the sausage is being made, but you're not showing everything behind it in the front, So I would say those are kind of the areas on how I would build it. And then from there, it's just leveraging tools that's going to help you make sure that you're looking at your pipeline correctly. So you're seeing what the conversion rates are at different stages of the customer journey. And then you're saying, okay, why is, say, for instance, like an MQL to an SQL and not converting as well? Okay, let's take a look at what that journey looks like. Let's take a look at what the holes are. And you could definitely use AI to help say, hey, these are the things that we're seeing. We're looking at data. We're looking at this. We see drop off at this point. You might want to start kind of changing this. And then all of a sudden you can start looking at how you can tweak certain parts of your funnel. So I would say it's just, from a demand point where you're creating your traffic, to that middle point where you're nurturing your that customer journey, that customer, and then from the end point of like, where can you actually find some leverage on closing these final deals?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And I really like that. It's because there's kind of like the, hey, here's my thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
giving that to AI, and then here's some facts, so to speak, or some evidence that I've picked up from the various stages in my sales funnel or my purchase funnel, and then have AI start to kind of put things together to organize it. Yeah, because I've seen that as well, as where I use it, and it definitely helps you to organize your thinking. And then, and that organization, quite often then leads to new ideas that can, say, okay, hey, here's definitely a hole here we need to fill, or here's a leak in our funnel that we want to be able to to fix. So what is a good case study, or what's a good example that you've seen where this your method really has propelled the company forward?
I mean, I can give you probably the most recent one where, working with my last in-house company, where we did a few different things. And I kind of alluded on some of that stuff throughout our conversation, but I'll kind of like lay it out, how it all worked. So we were generating a ton of leads when I first came in. However, they were the wrong ICP. So we basically, instead of us changing the website and changing this and changing that, we just looked at what was going on. We changed some emails, and we essentially changed the messaging internally on how we communicated to our leads. Then we started looking at how these leads were converting. So this is what I mean here is that so for every 100 leads that we were generating, roughly 15 of those were in our ICP. That's a big problem because you're wasting a lot of money for the wrong target audience. And so I realized that those that were coming in from Google were the wrong audience, and those that were coming in from Meta was like the ideal customer profile. And so what was happening is that our team was getting conversations. They were getting people calling them back. They were closing them at a higher rate, but those leads cost more. And I was like, okay, well, that's good that they're costing more because they were higher quality. So we started shifting all of our ad spend over to Meta versus Google. That in the roughly about 3 to 4 months, we were basically getting it from 15 leads that were in our ICP to 95 out of 100 in our ICP. So what I'm getting to here is that like we didn't just go in and try to just like blow up the website and blow up this and blow up that. We were very methodical in how we approached it. And then we were also having a very lean sales team. So we didn't have 10, 20, 30 SDRs that were trying to sell, or AEs. We had 3, and we were generating 3 to 4,000 leads a month. And so what we needed to do was, how do we basically give these sales team members the opportunity to sell more often, but not have to call and treat every lead equally? Because that's the problem, is that when you treat every contact the same way, then you're wasting time going up, barking up the wrong tree. So what we did is we created a funnel where we would have specific types of messages that went out. Emails that were getting 40% open rate, which is unheard of in the marketing world. But what we realized, that if we sent it from like a Gmail account, that had a higher open rate than, say, a marketing email. And so what we were trying to do here is create real emails that, as though like Tom would send the email, and it would create hand raisers. So that allowed our team to start putting focus on people that were really interested in moving forward. And then from there, we started condensing the sales cycle. And then what we did is that if nothing converted after, say, 21 days, they would get recycled to another salesperson. So then it would start a new conversation automatically without the salesperson having to do anything. This is all on the back end. And then this allowed them to essentially start going to getting new conversations and be like, oh, you know what? I never did get my vehicle wrap. I'm actually interested in talking about this more. And so now they have a new pool of, warm, qualified buyers again. And we would continue to do this. That just the email engine alone generated roughly $1.5 to $2 million a year in revenue. And so that gave confidence to our team that knowing like, hey, it's okay if we don't close them today, but we can close them, 6 months from now, 12 months from now. The other part is that we were able to condense the sales cycle to where 50% of our leads were getting closed within 7 days because the way we were actually pushing them down the funnel. So then now what that did is it allowed our team to really hammer certain types of contacts at the beginning. And there was other pieces to this, but that kind of gives you an idea from there. This allowed us to raise a Series A round of $16 million. And the reason is because we built the floor. So we knew that for every dollar we spent, we would get $8 back. That was our ROAS that we were doing. And so that allowed us to kind of create that predictability for our company to go raise around and then to start focusing in other go-to-markets. So it goes back to what I said earlier, is like put all your attention on what's really working and then think about expanding out of that.
Yeah, absolutely. That makes so much sense. Well, it's just fascinating to hear the success. Now, one thing though, I'm just curious about, and that is, you mentioned that like a Gmail address might do better than a branded .com address. Just curious, did you find maybe that the .com address may have been being blocked by your prospective customers because it was going into some kind of a spam filter, whereas the Gmail addresses weren't? Or
no, it's how the emails are getting sent out from the ESPs, the email service provider. So when a marketing email is created, as an example in HubSpot, it has designs and whatever, even if it's text-based, it's already going to get flagged as a marketing email. So then depending on how you have your inbox for whether it's Google or not MSN, but Microsoft or whatever it is, it can categorize those as promotional and whatnot. When it's coming out from the Gmail, it's like not literally like a Gmail, like a Gmail email account. It's still a company branded email, but it's coming out from that person's actual personal email box for their company. So if it's like john@abc.com, then if that email went out, it would look as though John wrote the email himself and was sending it to the prospective buyer. Now, if it came out from a marketing email, so it could have been like no reply at abc.com, and it's already going to get flagged by the ESP as a marketing email. So then that's going to probably, depending on how your filters are set up, could go and get flagged as spam, or can get flagged as promotional, etc. When they're coming out from a sales-based, like a transactional email, that inbox higher. The issue there is that you can't use that as your marketing channel. So you've got to use it as a form of communication or a form of like transactional communication. So it's a very fine gray line, if you will.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And thank you for clarifying that, because, email is wonderful. It has relatively low cost, but the costs that you put against it are never the full costs to really understand that. And then, deliverability and actually getting into that mailbox is so critical. And
Exactly.
number one, and then number two is not only to get into the inbox, but then getting it to be read is the next big thing. So yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
So I hate to say it, we've got to break here, but I do have one last question for you. And what advice would you give an up and coming new marketer who wants to build up, their career in now the AI driven marketing world?
I would say one of them right now is build in public. Go out there and tell the world what you're doing, and don't be afraid of it. Don't be afraid of showing your failures. So it is one of those. I've had several people ask me this, and actually was talking to a college student saying like, what should I do as I continue to my journey down this marketing career. And honestly, I think it's just taking the time to building in public and just sharing what you're doing. And that becomes your ongoing resume, if you will. That becomes your wins and your losses. That becomes your learnings and your successes. And so, how you can position that allows you to really start showcasing your work, what, as opposed to, here's my resume. It's more of like, I've been doing all these things. Like, you can look through on my LinkedIn profile and people can understand, like, oh, you've really been active. Or maybe it's a YouTube channel. But where I'm coming from is like, find a channel that you're comfortable with and just build in public. Just share your story, because your story is so unique that it's going to probably drive other people to where they're going to want to learn from you, or probably work with you, or probably even hire you.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I like it being in public. That then at least allows some external scrutiny that you might not otherwise get, and that feedback, especially as a young employee or a young marketer, that feedback is so valuable to learn from that and show that it's not just your stuff, but it's really you've learned and you can learn and can significantly improve as you grow in your career. Yeah,
Exactly. No, I totally
Javier.
agree.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, Javier, thank you so much. This was really fantastic. And so, where can folks learn more about you and your company?
Yeah, a couple of places. So I hang out most of my time on LinkedIn, so I'm very active there. You can just do a search for Javier Lozano Jr. I believe I am the only Javier Lozano Jr. on LinkedIn, so you should be able to find me pretty quickly. You could also go to my website, Boulder Media Solutions. Make sure you spell Boulder like being bold, as a bold presence. Otherwise, those are the two places. And also on my website, I have a free diagnostic that helps people figure out just quickly on how to diagnose some leaky pipeline. It's just a free gift where you can go in there. It takes you 15 minutes to actually kind of diagnose your business, and it gives you priorities of where to put your number one focus, which is what we've kind of been leaning into in this conversation as well too. So those are the three places, or I'm sorry, those are the two places that you can find me.
Fantastic. So that's bouldermediasolutions.com, bouldermediasolutions.com. Javier, thank you so much. I really learned a lot, and I think our audience will as well. I really appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you, Guy. I really appreciate your time too.
Yeah, absolutely. And for the audience, definitely stay tuned for many other videos in this series on the backstory on marketing and AI. And if you get a chance, please rate these as 5 stars, and we'll hopefully continue to provide high quality content for you. Javier, thank you again so much.